Hello, this is Mike Kincaid here to interview Mike Kincaid about his SOHA experience and ask him whether or not he believes Matthew Johnson is hoaxing or not. So, my first question for Mike Kincaid is who are you and how did you get into Bigfoot? Oh, well, I'm just a regular guy. Um, I grew up in Washington State, moved to California after graduate school. I've got 3 kids, a lovely wife, a new dog. It's like just a regular guy. But when I was really young, I had an experience that I still remember. Um, I was sleeping. I was probably 3 or 4 years old, and we were in Bellingham, Washington at the time, renting a house, a greenhouse on Birch Street. It's still there. It's still green. It's got a flat roof. It's 2411 Birch Street. You can use Google whatever and fly in and look at it. It looks the same to me. On the left-hand side, you can see the bedroom windows, and on the right-hand side is the garage. Um, my brother and I, we had a room on the back side of the house. You couldn't see that window, but that window, I remember that window because sometime while we were living in that house, I looked up and I saw this face staring down at me, and it's freaked me out because it was not like a normal face, like a human face. And I remember running out of the room, going to my parents' room and saying, "It's a bear, it's a bear," but it wasn't a bear. So in the middle of the night, something was staring down at me. I remember having to run past the window, which is really kind of spooky because I thought it could crash through the window and grab me as I went by, but um, obviously I survived. So then, I don't know what that thing was, but then years later, oh, and at the time that house, this greenhouse, if you look now, there's a lot of homes around there. But back then, that was the only house on Birch Street. The other house, there were some houses on top of Alabama Hill, but and there was a house next to us that a nice old lady lived in. We called her Mrs. M. Um, and the road that led to this house that we were renting was a gravel road, and then it turned into there was split off and turned into a dirt road, which ran down into the woods even deeper down towards Lake Whatcom. And then from the house also down to Lake Whatcom was all woods. So it's changed a lot since I was a kid, but back then it was all woods. So yeah, this event kind of like freaked me out. And then later on, I saw the PG film, and I always wondered, it's like, I wonder if that's what that was. It was staring at me through the window. I'm pretty sure it was something like that, but you don't know, you're too small, so not sure. But that's how I kind of got interested in Bigfoot. And then the internet, of course, is great, and you can, chat with other people and stuff like that. So that's how I kind of got interested. So, how do you know Matthew Johnson? Well, I don't. Well, I do now, but back then, and even before I went to SOHA, I'd never met him in person. So the first time I met him was in Grants Pass on the way to SOHA. We had talked on the phone. We had exchanged emails. I managed to somehow convince him that I was an ethical person and that which I am. But it's like I believe that if a researcher is going to be working, for so many years like he has in a place, that you don't go there stomping on somebody's research. You go there and they're respectfully. You don't go in there, trying to stomp on their research findings. They're you don't break test tubes. If you're going to go there, you're respectful of their work and all their hard work for, in his case, 10 years. So I work at a place where there's a lot of research going on, so it's really important for just my mentality is just to respect the researchers. So I managed, like I said, to gain his trust. It took a while. I wanted to go to SOHA because for me that was the the place that has had the most consistent activity anywhere. You know, did I know that it was true, activity and stuff like that? No, but I believed that he's an ethical person, and that if I was going to go any place, that was the place to go. That was the place to actually to see something if you really truly want to see something. So, so you managed to go to SOHA. So, what evidence did you discover? Well, SOHA is a very cool place. Um, it it it's kind of like interesting because you go there and it's a normal place. There are birds, maybe not as many, but there are some birds. I've seen some crows and a robin once, and a few other things. And like Matt says, there's no critters hanging out. Although the last time they went there was a bear. So okay, fine. Bears and stuff can come by. I did see three deer bound off in the woods on my last trip, not at SOHA, but just down the road a little bit, on the other side of the trail. So there's some animals, but there's not little critters like he says. So evidence. Evidence are things like, the first night that I was there was absolutely quiet, which is great because then you can hear all these little noises and you can hear things kind of moving around and creeping around. That night was quiet, not that eventful, except for some odd dreams that I had, which I've detailed in other places. But so there were some odd dreams that I had. But other than that, we woke up and checked the gifting bowls, and that's where your eyes start to open up, and you're like, wait a minute, what does this? And you start staring at the gifting bowls, and there's no explanation for the stuff that you see where the bread is picked at, or a Cheeto is gone, or a Fig Newton is missing, just one, or there's a fingerprint left, or peanut butter and jelly sandwiches are split in half, like with hands, and there's finger swipes in them. You just can't quite explain that by saying, oh, it's a squirrel, or it's a raccoon, or it's a deer, or it's a bear. It could be a human. There could be a human in the woods. Okay, I could believe there's a human that could do this, but other than the human, there's nothing else that really could do this. Or in other words, something with hands could do it. Could be a monkey, I suppose. What other evidence? Well, that first trip, we had some eggs that actually managed to teleport from one container to another container, which was bizarre. Not really teleport, but we woke up in the morning and they moved. And I was a little skeptical of that at first. I'm like, we could have just put them over there. But the other two were convincing me no. And I'm like, yeah, maybe, I don't know. Then you start adding in all the other SOHA evidence as you go, and you go like, no, they were moved. So that's what you end up with ultimately. That was my first trickster kind of behavior that I saw. So I was pretty skeptical. Oh gosh, what else in that first trip did we encounter? Well, there's a lot of weird stick structures there, that's for sure. You're watching these branches and you're trying to figure out how they fall, and then how they sometimes fall and then like go between this tree, but then go slightly around and then end up behind that tree. I remember on my last trip with my son Nick, we took this walk further down the logging road, and then I veered off into this up this hill, and ran into this one branch tree actually that had been broken off pretty low, but then it had fallen. But after it had fallen, it had bent, and this is like a 40-foot SOHA tree. It had bent around, on the ground, and around in a big, huge arc, coming around and then around another tree, with some tension on it. And I was looking at that. That's not trees don't fall that way. So there's, a lot of interesting tree things going on there. Gosh, what else on that first trip? It rained a little bit, so the audio kind of got a little worse. the gifting bowl stuff. When I got home, I had handprints inside my car, and I could not explain that. That was really bizarre. Um, so there's odd things like that going on. My second trip with I brought my son Nick, and we arrived late. And the other folks had already been there a couple of days. Matt was gracious enough to let me stay an extra day with my son. He said we could have stayed 2 days, but one was enough. Now I kind of wish I'd stayed 2 days, but with my son there, was that one was enough. But um, that was pretty interesting. The second night that I was there was just Johnny, me, and Nick, and that night was wild. It was one of those absolutely quiet nights again, and the the audio was awesome. Johnny saw a shadow of something jump down the road. Um, we heard tapping in the woods, not very far from where my son Nick was. I quizzed my son later. I heard tapping. Johnny heard tapping. Um, I asked him what my son heard. He said he heard footsteps. I tapped what I heard, and he said no, it was louder than that. I asked him what direction it was from, and he said it was from more like 1 or 2 o'clock, and I thought it was from a different angle. So there was some differences in what he was hearing versus what I was hearing. But this tapping was going on, and I was clapping to the tapping, and so it was intelligent tapping. It wasn't water dripping, and it hadn't rained anyways. But so there was intelligent tapping going on. It wasn't a bug. Um, and when I was clapping with it, it slowed down. When I stopped clapping, it got softer, and then it got louder. And then right after that, after about 5 minutes of tapping, my son comes up to me, and he's saying he's nauseous. And he said, "Look at my leg," and his leg is shaking. And I'm thinking, wow, is he getting sick? Because Matt got sick. Every time I go, Matt's sick the past 2 times. But anyways, I thought he might be getting sick, but then I also remember like the zapping kind of behavior, and it was like, this is kind of strange. His body's acting scared and nauseous, and that's been kind of reported. And so I was thinking maybe that's it, but he just thought he was tired and he had a headache, and stuff like that, which maybe that's the case, but that was another odd thing that happened. Um, when I was the chef during those 2 nights there at SOHA, the bread got pinched, like fingers pinched the bread out just to check. I know I didn't put enough peanut butter on. If I ever go back and have to do the bread again, I will put a lot more peanut butter on. Matter of fact, I'll put a ton of peanut butter on so that they can see it. I think that they were looking, and I was pretty stingy with the peanut butter. So my bad. Gosh. Then that same night that Johnny, Nick, and I were there, we went to bed, and Johnny fell asleep. I could hear him. Nick was already sleeping, and I hear something creeping up on my right hand side. And once again, it's so quiet. The mosquitoes are out because there's no wind, and but it's absolutely so quiet, and I can hear something sliding closer and closer, and I'm like, okay, this is getting interesting. I wonder what it is. Then I kind of know what it is, but then I thought, I'll pretend to sleep. So I closed my eyes a little bit, squinted, and just watched the stars for about 5 minutes. And then I thought, okay, I gotta look. So I'm like, ready, go. And I turned my head like this. And I saw this about a triangular shaped figure. It was about, I would say, 4 feet tall, about 4 feet wide at the bottom, kind of like an equilateral triangle, but a figure, was rounded. And as soon as I turned my head, the moonlight's out. This is a full moon night. As soon as I turned my head, I caught something, looking at me, and then it suddenly just goes flat to the ground. It goes poof, and there's no animal that behaves that way. That's just like, oh my gosh, you caught me. I think I'll duck. So that was pretty convincing at the time for me. That was my best visual evidence of anything so far. So I was like, I was like, I hear you. I'm gonna look at you, and yep, I saw something do that. But I had a playful mind when I was doing it, and then at that point, I just put a pillow over my face. I just like, okay, I just got to get some sleep. I have been having problems sleeping, so about a month before that. But actually, after that SOHA trip, I slept pretty well. So that was that night. Johnny left in the morning, so he took all the gear away, and I put basically we had cleaned up the camp from somebody else had cleaned up the camp from crows and stuff like that that attacked the prior day's night. If that makes any sense. And so we cleaned up that mess was cleaned up, and all the bad food and stuff like that was put away in garbages. And then when Johnny packed up all the stuff, and I had to put stuff into my cooler, I only put good stuff in my cooler. I only put peanut butter and jelly, the jam, the bread. Actually, I think I left the bread maybe out, but only put good stuff in my. There was some apples and stuff like that. And so later on, when I got home, when I drove home from that trip, there was when I opened up my cooler, there was an apple in it that had been crow pecked that I did not put in the cooler. It ended up in the cooler, but I packed my cooler. It was only my son and Nick. So that's another piece of weird evidence, something that happened. I'm like, wow, how did that happen? More trickster behavior. And no, I'm not fooling myself. That apple, I did not put that in there. Everything else was in the garbage. But prior to that, driving home that particular night, it was just my son and myself there. And my son was tired, so he went to bed early. And I did the usual routines, trying to follow Matt's, routines as much as possible. So then I went to bed that night, and it was kind of a breezy night, so I didn't really detect much activity going on. But then this was the night of the lunar eclipse moon. Right in the middle of the lunar eclipse moon, I'm awoken by a voice, and the voice goes, rah, 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 rah. It was deep too. Rah, rah. Just, I bolted awake like, oh crap, what's that? And it was deep. It was words. It was a voice. I know the direction for the voice. I know the tone of the voice. It's one of those things that as you're woken up, it's real. So that voice was really pretty awesome. So that's another piece of evidence that was like, wow, it's either somebody standing there or it's a Bigfoot standing there. Something made that sound. Maybe about 20 minutes, a half hour later. Well, actually, after that sound, I go, hello? My name's Mike. Yeah, I'm friends of Matt. I didn't make the moon go away. So, it was kind of maybe me just talking out loud to try to say like, the lunar eclipse is not my fault, Mr. Bigfoot. So don't take it out on me. Anyways, so that was pretty interesting. And then we packed up and went home. Other weird things. Oh, another strange thing that happened too on the first trip was, as we went for a hike and we came back, I found this stick on the ground, which is pretty interesting to me. I like puzzles. I find odd things. I don't know why, and I sometimes just fidget with things. So I found this stick on the ground that had been broken, and I thought, oh, it looks like a puzzle. So I put the two pieces together. And then it crossed my brain. It's like, oh, well, gee, out of respect. And this stick was on the trail about 300 yards from camp. And I thought to myself, well, out of respect for the forest people, I'll put the stick back down in the same place. This is Matt's research site. I want to do the right thing. So I put the stick down. And then a couple days later on that first trip, we get up in the morning and we're going out to check the gifting bowls. And at the head of the trail, 300 yards away, the head of the trail by the campground, is that stick on the ground. And I noticed it on the ground. I looked down. I'm like, whoa, that's the same stick. That's kind of odd. But then I kept walking, and Matt's like, Mike. I'm like, what? He's pointing at the stick. I'm going like, yeah, I know, it's the same stick. And so I picked it up, and yeah, it was the same stick. It was the same break. And not only that, it was broken in a third spot or second spot. So there was three pieces. Um, so I still have that stick. It's my gift, I guess. That was pretty cool. Another piece of trickster stuff. Other than that, voices. I heard the owls hoot. That was really cool. I heard kind of like a pew pew sound. That was that was on the night that it was just Johnny, me, and Nick. Both those things. I got to talk to some amazing people. That was really cool. Toby's really cool. Some of the experiences he's had. Of course, Matt and Johnny, some of the experience. Matt's, of course, got a lot of experiences. Johnny's had some really cool experiences. He was telling me about his first trip, and um, how scared he was of being there and all the noises and the footsteps and stuff like that. And so I was really expecting to be completely wowed and scared and stuff like that, but I wasn't. It was pretty kind of not gentle, but subtle. There was a lot of subtle things going on. But you add it all up, and there's something going on. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. So it's a lot of experiences. So how do you think Matt could have hoaxed all that, or could he have? Did he? Yeah, it's you can't hoax all that. I'm sorry. It's impossible. You can't go to the forest and you know perform a hoax on all these people that have been there and visited there, um, and especially the different variety of things people experience. It's not like some guy in a suit just walks out of the woods and was going, "Oh my God, we saw a Bigfoot." There's just weird things that are going on. All the whole variety of things. He would have to be a great magician, um, and he's not. Am I? Does Matt Johnson is he hoaxing up there? No, he's absolutely not hoaxing. Um, it, First, why would you drive 800 miles, to do these hoaxes? Why would you spend all that money? Why would you go sit in the woods of all places, to do this? Are you that starved for attention? No, he's that's not his personality type. He's a regular person. Um, this kind of landed in his lap years ago. Um, you know, Kind of like me, I guess. You're kind of drawn to it, or some event happens, and then you're kind of drawn to it. But no, he's just a regular person. So no, he's not hoaxing up there. First of all, physically to get through the woods. First of all, we're with him all the time. First, we're with him all the time. So there's no way he can, get away and do anything. Second of all, like when you're up there, the woods is just covered in leaf debris and twigs and stuff like that, and you cannot walk around there without crunching and crunching and crunching. So if there's a human around walking up there, like if he's got his buddy walking around, or if there's a hobo or something, no, you'd pick up on it. I mean, I can't walk through up there without sounding like I'm, crunching on potato chips everywhere. It's just nuts. Um, so no, he's not hoaxing, and there's nobody else up there. So then you're like, oh, well, what about electronics? Could he be like pushing buttons and like causing things to happen electronically? And it's like, well, during the day we get to walk everywhere and we get to look at everything. There's no batteries, there's no wires. Matt's not that great with electronics as far as hardware. He's pretty good with Facebook, etc. But you know, no, there's no buttons being pressed or whatever. So then you're kind of left with, it's like, is he telling the truth? And given all the evidence that's going on there, yeah, he's telling the truth. Now, it's like, I didn't know him. I get to go there. It's cool. It's fun. It's a blast. You get to see things and experience things that are kind of outside of the normal circle of things. Um, am I up there to hoax with him? Absolutely not. I never even knew him when I went there. So, And he's taken probably about, I don't know, 20, 25 people up there at the time. So, somebody's going to eventually go like, yeah, it was a blast. We were hoaxing. No, it's not happening. No, there's no hoaxing. There's activity up there. There's definitely activity. So that's, believe it or not, if you get to go, you'll believe it. Oh, well, so we've established that you've had some evidence and that you believe that he's not hoaxing. Do you have anything else to say? Go Seahawks. We're going to win again.